Okay. Hey, everybody, it's Todd with Cross Country Mortgage. And for this edition of Who Do I Know, I would like to introduce you to my good friend, Brad Warren, who I've known for about 5 or 6 years. And Brad and I have been punting ideas back and forth for many years. But the one concept that he keeps bringing back to me is something he introduced me to when we first met a while back called land banking. And it's basically acquiring land before it becomes something really special. And I envisioned him showing up to our first meeting with a cowboy hat and spurs on, because that's, the 1800s were all about acquiring land and coming out west. And to think that actually exists still today and even on a more profitable level is just blew my mind when I first heard the concept. So I would like to pass this baton on to my good friend Brad. And the concept he's going to share is called land banking. So Brad, can you share a little bit? What is land banking?
All right, be very happy to, Todd, and thank you very much for having me on. And there is a little bit of a similarity between the 1800s, because right now, one of the things we say at our company is that California is experiencing the greatest land rush in its history. And
Wow.
I'll come back to that in a bit.
Right.
But the basic concept of land banking is buying land strategically placed in the path of growth,
Hmm.
holding it, and then letting the developers come to you to purchase it at a way higher price than what you bought it for.
Gotcha.
That's the basic concept of land banking.
Okay. Awesome.
So
And I
it's
know
a,
you're
it's a
going to share, sure you're going to share a little bit more about this, but a lot of people think, well, there's speculation, in other areas that may have feel less overgrown. But I know what you shared with me in the past is the company that you work with and the people that you work with have a very strategic and scientific method for determining what is the best land, right?
correct.
So
Yes,
yeah, so and I know we'll get to
absolutely.
that in just a little bit, but can you, before we get to that, can you share a little bit how you personally got involved?
Yeah, I'll give you the short story. It was December 31st of 2011. I was doing my quarterly net worth statement that I've done every quarter since my wife and I got married in 1989. And I looked at it and I had a little bit of an upset. I realized I couldn't retire.
Yeah.
I looked at the numbers. My wife could retire if she was single and just had her money, and I could retire using her money.
Yes.
But by myself, my own side of the ledger hadn't grown large enough for me to comfortably retire if I truly wanted to
Yeah.
in the next few years. And so that's how I got involved. 2 months later, or actually the next month, January of 2012, I had my land banker, Marcella Silva, come to my house with her husband, Rick. They sat at our kitchen table with my wife and I. Marcella did her 90-minute presentation, at the end of which my wife walked out of the room and basically said, I like my 401k and my stocks and my mutual funds. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do land. She actually thought it was land speculation.
Yeah.
But I turned to Marcella and said, get me a property. This is the only way I'm going to build a big enough nest egg, what we call generational wealth, legacy wealth, so that I can retire on my own if I have to. And 2 months later, I had my first property.
Awesome. Awesome. And then since then, you've been buying up property as
Oh
they come
yeah,
available, right?
I bought another one the next year, my third one a year after that. The following year, my wife came to hear Marcella speak again. And the whole way driving to the presentation, she kept saying, no, I'm not going to buy. I'm not going to buy. I'm just going to, like going to a timeshare with your spouse or partner.
Yes,
We're not going to buy. We just want the free toaster. That's how
exactly.
long ago I bought my first timeshare. Okay. They were giving out toasters.
Yeah,
Uh, but don't ask me to buy. I said, no, I just want you to get educated and see what
yeah.
I've been doing for the last 3 years. So she shows up, sits through the presentation, and buys two there that day, yanks out her checkbook. I didn't even know she had her checkbook with her, and put down the
Mhm.
deposit on the two properties. And then the way home, I was so tempted to say, I told you so, but I didn't.
Yeah, I did.
Happy
Yeah.
wife, happy life. You don't want to do that. And since then, we've gotten six more. So we now have 11 properties,
No.
almost 40 acres, 39 acres
Okay.
under our control, 1.7 million square feet. And our future is done. It's taken
Right.
care of. We do not have to worry about money ever again.
That is incredible. Uh, I know I want to drill down on who this is really, who this works for, and I've got some questions related to that. But can you get into I'll use the word scientific, but how is the land that ultimately is banked, is purchased, how is that determined? And with the people that you've been working with, can you share a little bit more about the specifics and the,
Sure.
yeah,
I'm happy to. And in fact, we actually have a 90-minute presentation that Marcella does. The one that I saw, only it's been updated, of course, over the years.
yeah,
And that's actually a prerequisite for anybody who invests with us. We educate first. We will not, if you right now told me you had $50,000 in a paper bag sitting on your desk and you wanted to buy land, I could not sell it to you unless you'd already seen the presentation.
okay,
And in that presentation, Marcella goes into great depth
yeah,
about how we choose an area. Right now, it's Southern California, one very well-defined area of Southern California. And there's what we call 10 growth factors. I'm not going to go into that in this little short interview. You got to go see the presentation.
yep, yep,
But when those 10 factors are there, we know that the people living in that area, that the population's going to increase, the infrastructure is going to grow, the housing is going to grow, the jobs are there, and that means the land will become more expensive over time as more and more gets built. It's supply and demand.
right,
You got X amount of acres of land. Once you build a housing development, there's that much less to build the next housing development.
yeah,
So that's how we decide where we're going to invest. And then to very briefly, we use 16 factors. We call it the 16 factors that are applied by the research and acquisition department of the company I work for. Every property that we look at goes through all 16 of these questions. And if it doesn't meet all 16, we reject it and we don't buy it.
no kidding,
Valorac, the company actually only buys 1 out of every 30 properties that it looks at. That's how stringent the requirements are. That's the level of due diligence that's
right,
done on a property.
wow,
Yeah.
that's awesome. And so every so it has to meet all 16. If it's only 15, then it doesn't fit the criteria for the most
It
part.
might sneak through depending on what that 15th is, but pretty much it's a very high bar. We're talking, out of 100 properties, we buy 3. And when I
Okay.
say we, the company buys the property with its money first. It's
Yeah.
called first mover risk. They put their own money into the property and hold it. It does get marked up. That's where the company makes its profit.
Of course.
It needs cash flow to run the business and pay
Right.
the researchers and all the staff.
Right,
But it's still at or below current market value because that's how good we are at buying the property. We're buying it under market value.
right,
So we mark it up, we sell it to the investor when they come along, and then the investor holds, generally, we like to say 7 to 10 years to be very conservative. So this is not a flip. This is actually the exact opposite. And it's a great way to diversify an IRA or a 401k because that money's going to sit for 15 or 20 or 30 years anyway, depending on how old you are. And you might as well have it in an investment that is going to return you multiple
right,
X, not just 10% or 5% or 8% or 2%.
yeah, yeah. And the fact that there's 16 criteria means the success rate of finding a property that ultimately has that kind of a return has got to be close to 100%, right? I mean,
Well, what I can say is no one who's ever invested with us has ever lost money.
Yeah.
Now, not everybody's sold. We have 22,000 plus investors, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of properties sold, thousands of properties actually. And not all of them have sold yet. So, some people are still waiting, but there's a darn good chance. And once you see the presentation, it all makes a lot more sense.
yeah. I remember the first time we met to discuss this concept, the thought was in my head that, well, there's a lot of people. I have a lot in mortgage banking. I have a lot of people who come to me and say, hey, where should I be buying, for the best investment? And, I have a couple guys who have owner occupied homes here, and then they ended up buying, 3 or 4 homes in Ohio, right? And but that's really taking a dart and kind of throwing it at a spinning globe and not knowing whether you're investing in something that is actually going to have a return, whereas the company that you're working with, they've done all of that research, right? And I remember thinking, Southern California, that's got to be bought up by now, right? I mean, and I remember asking you, right? Well, are they looking in other areas, like suburbs
Well,
of Seattle or whatever, right?
let me back up on that
Yeah,
question for a second.
yeah,
We used to invest we only invest in Southern California. We
yeah,
used to invest in 5 different areas, and they were euphemistically called Area 1, Area 2, Area 3, 4, and 5. Nothing fancy.
yeah,
Right now, areas 2, 3, 4, and 5 have gotten so expensive that we can't find land cheap enough to offer it to our investors at the price that they're used to getting.
yeah,
So right now, almost all of our sales are still in Area 1, and that's going, the land there, that's why I called it the greatest land rush in the history of
yeah,
California,
yeah,
mostly because of the laws that California has passed about energy
right,
and where electricity in California comes from. It has to come from renewables, 100% from renewables by
right,
2045. And in order for the energy companies to provide that to us, the people that use the energy, they are building massive utility scale solar farms
right,
left and right, day in, day out. Hundreds and hundreds of acres are being consumed to build these massive, massive utility scale solar farms.
right.
And right now, that's the most land that we're selling is for solar. It
Wow,
just, you buy it and then you sell it to a solar company for obviously a nice profit. And
right,
they come in, they dig a hole, they put a post, they put up a solar panel, and then another one, and then thousands of them.
yeah,
In fact, I could show you a picture. I mean,
yeah,
if I can change my screen, I could actually very quickly. Let's see if we can do this on the fly.
right.
Here we go. Can you see
Oh,
that?
yes,
That is a utility scale solar field in the area where we invest.
okay,
In fact, my wife and I even own land pretty close to where this one is, if I'm not
okay.
mistaken. If it's where I think it is, we've got some land nearby. And in the background are those little white things. Those are wind turbines.
Right, that's,
And
yep,
again, wind will provide some electricity, but not to the scale that these many panels can produce.
right.
So huge, huge opportunity right now.
Right, and the idea, so you said you've got some land that's near these, this land with all the solar panels. Ultimately, could be a year from now, 5 years, 10 years, but those owners and the people that are building those solar farms are going to keep creeping out towards your land and say, "Hey, Mr. Warren, can we buy your land?" Right, and now you've got this huge arbitrage between what you paid for and what they're willing to pay.
Correct.
And that's as simple as it gets, right?
And it's like you said, we sell land that's strategically placed in the path of growth.
Yeah.
And people say, well, don't I have to own a whole bunch? Well, if they want to build a 2,000 acre solar farm and your 1 acre is in the middle, they got to buy your land to build it, because otherwise they have to leave an easement,
Right.
which means a whole road has to be left for you to get to your land. And that means less panels.
Right.
Less panels, less electricity. Less electricity, less money for the PG&E or SoCal or San Diego Power,
Whoever it is.
or
Yeah.
Garland or S Power or Recurrent Energy. I mean, there's 10 or 15 companies now. It's not just the 3 big state-owned facilities. A lot of these smaller players are coming in and they're buying up the land left
Right.
and right. So,
Right. It's amazing. And
spot on with your analysis.
there's still millions of acres, right, that are
Unfortunately, not millions.
Okay.
It's
hundreds of thousands. Okay.
It's actually even less than that, but we're
Okay.
not going to go into that here. Just go see one of Marcella's presentations.
There you
She has the numbers. She has the exact numbers.
Let me ask you this: as
Yeah.
I come across people that may have disgruntled comments about their investments and what they should be doing. Obviously, you're going to come to mind. Who would you say is the right person? Who's the right fit for land banking?
Great question. So patience.
Yeah.
They have to be somebody. If they say, Brad, I don't have 90 minutes to watch a webinar. Can't you just condense it for me?
Right.
Not a good. if they haven't got the patience to watch a 90-minute educational presentation before they hand over a minimum of $25,000, then they're not the kind of person we want to do business
Right.
with. So they got to be patient.
Okay.
The biggest threat to land banking is the land banker themselves wanting to exit too soon.
Okay.
You got to wait. It's like a good wine. You can drink it early, but it's certainly not going to taste as good as if you let it mature and ripen to the point where it's supposed to be.
Okay.
So patient investors, minimum $25,000. We love cash.
Okay.
You can't finance land. We don't recommend that. You could, but it's not a good use of your money. So it's either cash, or I would say 75 to 80% of our investors use IRAs and 401ks.
Okay.
Now it has to be transferred into what's called a self-directed IRA, and we
Okay.
can teach you how to do that. We can't give financial advice,
Right.
but we can steer you to 3 different companies that we work with, and they can explain how to set up one. And then you just move your money from your regular IRA to the self-directed IRA, which is allowed to invest in real estate, whereas
Gotcha.
a regular IRA you can't. And then you use that money, and it's going to sit there in your IRA anyway. And then the money goes back into your IRA. And obviously, if you know what a Roth IRA is, that's even better, because then it's tax-free instead of just tax deferred.
Right.
But again, I don't give financial advice.
Yeah.
But we do help people. We encourage people. We steer them in the right direction.
Steer them in the right direction. Awesome.
So
Okay.
yeah,
Very cool.
minimum 25,000, patient, because it's a buy and hold, and IRA money and 401k money is a great way.
Okay. Excellent. Awesome. Well, I think.
By the way,
yeah.
refinancing and taking some money out in
yes.
cash is another great way. I mean, then they would talk to you to make sure that it fits their cash flow and all that. But several people, they refinance, they yank out 100, they keep their rate, they lower the rate, but they're taking money out, so that's a higher mortgage. So their monthly payment may stay the same, but now they got 100,000 cash.
Right.
Well, they buy a $50,000 property with us. Maybe they spend 5,000 on a vacation, and they put the other 45 into a emergency fund.
Yep.
So that's where they would talk to you first before they would talk to me.
Right. Okay. Excellent. So those are the people I'm going to keep my eyes open for a good opportunity with land banking. Is there? I want to kind of cut this. I think we've spent a good 10, 12 minutes, which I think is a wealth of time for people to gain more knowledge. Is there any last pieces of information that you'd like to share? I'm going to include your email address so they can reach out and gather more information. But are there any nuggets you'd like to drop here?
One thing that I completely forgot about is I pay a referral fee. We actually call it a marketing consultation fee.
Okay.
So that anybody can accept it. And it's very handsome. It's very nice. I'm not going to go into the details of it, but once somebody becomes an investor, then they start telling their friends, and we want to reward them for sharing this with their friends. They can actually make very good money. I actually, after buying my first property, I was so on fire about it that I started telling so many people and referring them to Marcella. I became her #1 finder. That's what we call our referral partners. We call them finders.
Yeah.
And I've kept track over the years of how much money I've made. It just passed $51,000 in referral fees.
That's awesome.
And in fact, you're not going to believe this, but today, what is today? October what? October 8th.
Yep.
I just went to the mailbox, got a check from Marcella for $260, which was actually 1%, which means that it was the friend of a friend. We actually paid 2 levels down, but I'm not going to go into that. Yep. So I know it was 1% of a $26,000 property that somebody I referred to her years ago.
Yeah.
They bought another property, and I got paid on it $260. I call it mailbox money.
Yeah, mailbox money. Yes.
Mailbox money, and I laugh all the way to the bank while I make the deposit, because it took 0 time for me to make that money. It just showed up in my mailbox. So that's another thing that we get into with people after they watch the 90-minute presentation and get involved with us. That opportunity becomes available to them to be a finder.
I love it. Excellent. Awesome. Well, thank you for spending the time. Yeah, and it's been a blessing getting to know you over these years, and I look forward to many more. So At any rate, folks, if you're interested in land banking, please reach out to Brad. His contact info is below. And I mean, there's absolutely no cost to spend 90 minutes learning more about something you've never heard of before, and which could potentially change your life and for generations, going forward as well. So anyways, Brad, thank you so much. Appreciate your time. And,
My pleasure.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. That's Who I Know. Have an awesome rest of your day. Cheers.
Hi, everybody.
Excellent.